Imagine this. It's 2004 and you're in the mood for some martial arts action. So, you pop a Jet Li DVD into your PlayStation 2, let's say Fist of Legend or Once Upon a Time in China. Or maybe you grab Sony's exclusive Rise to Honor and become Jet Li rather than just watch him. I have to commend the game's commitment to this fantasy. Even its main menu looks straight out of a home DVD release, complete with a multi-page chapter select and special features. The dedication doesn't stop there. Rise to Honor fully embraces the idea of being a playable Hong Kong action movie. There's no collectibles, no upgrades, no skill trees, nothing that would distract from the core experience of stylishly beating up or shooting down waves of goons. The accompanying undercover cop story is paper thin, but it does the job of swiftly moving us from one action scene to the next. One can say that's par for the course in the genre the game is inspired by. And if you're a fan of Jet Li films in particular, there's plenty of references to catch. Although I wouldn't have minded if Rise to Honor was a little bit less authentic to its source of inspiration by having, actually good acting.
Hey, there you are! They call your name at the ceremony, so I accepted for you.
Thanks, Chi.
The food was great! They must really like
We
you.
have to get out of here.
Yeah, before any goons get here. Did Kid tell you? We were almost killed.
We need somewhere safe.
I know a place, no one will find us.
Thank God half of the game is in Cantonese and my white Eastern European face can't comprehend whether performances in a foreign language you don't understand are good or not.
你唔係啊關隊，仲係咁同佢作對？
你都聽到㗎啦，佢癲㗎，根本就冇人可以埋佢身。
係啫，但係冇理由臨天光就功虧一簣㗎。我知你同佢一齊長大，但要記住當日你為乜當差啊？就係要阻止呢啲江湖仇殺。
Of course you can turn on full English dubbing, but why do you hate yourself? The most intriguing part of Rise to Honor's attempt to mimic Jet Li's fight scenes, especially those iconic one versus many moments, is its control scheme. Face buttons are not used at all. Instead, combat revolves around slapping the right stick in the direction of enemies. And yes, slap is the actual term the game uses. The type and length of your combos depend on the rhythm of your slaps. R1 lets you block and dodge, combining it with a slap grabs enemies, L1 activates adrenaline mode, and pressing both R1 and L1 while slapping counters enemy attacks. But there's no penalties for poorly timed counters, so you can just spam it as long as the stamina bar is not empty. It's not a particularly deep system, nor does it need to be. When everything clicks, you are Jet Li, naturally flowing between mooks, jumping, dodging, countering, and improvising in exceedingly stylish ways. The slappy sound effects are satisfying, the soundtrack is immersive, and the fantastic animations make it all feel, well, cinematic, fully achieving the game's goals. The problem is, it doesn't always click. And the further you get into this relatively short 3 to 5 hour experience, depending on how many times you die, the more it doesn't. First off, Jet's attack reach is all over the place because the hitboxes are strictly connected to animations. You have barely any control over which move plays, and neither Jet nor his enemies try to adjust their positioning for smooth gameplay. There's no magnetism towards bad guys, so even when they're close, you'll end up beating the shit out of air more than out of them. It's especially disheartening when you pull off an awesome move with a partner, only to have it rendered pointless by most enemies around you standing just ever so slightly out of reach. Then, there's the matter of consistency, or rather, lack of it. Problem 1. Not all objects or environments that should have actions assigned to them actually do. Every action that's not related directly to stick slapping is contextual, activated with R1. They range from jumping over obstacles to throwing chairs at enemies. In segments like chase sequences, due to their linearity, the game makes sure every obstacle has the right trigger. But in more open combat arenas? Not so much. For example, you can do a stylish wall jump attack which is great for crowd control, except not all walls have the proper action assigned, so sometimes it's impossible to do the move. Problem 2. Missing mechanics. There is no way to interact with enemies who fall onto the ground, as such should any part of your combo trip them, there is not much you can do until they get back up. Also, while most enemy grabs can be countered, some, like the ones where a brute picks you up to throw, seem impossible to escape. If there is a counter, I have no idea what it is, nor do I understand how to dodge that grab. The most irritating example concerns melee weapons. When fighting barehanded, you can initiate attacks while running, but the moment you pick up a weapon or two, you have to completely stop before attacking, killing the flow. Problem 3. Inconsistency in existing mechanics, especially blocking. Sometimes it simply doesn't register if Jet is mid-animation, making it hard to smoothly transition from offense to defense. Countless times I'd start holding R1 before an enemy attack landed, but would still get hit because Jet's in the middle of another move. This gets particularly frustrating later when difficulty ramps up and enemies start stun-locking you with their combos. These issues become even worse during boss or mini-boss fights, which usually rely on strict strategies that are often unclear without trial and error. For example, one boss is unbeatable unless you specifically attack him exactly 3 times and then dodge. Or throw a melee weapon at him to stun, which can take a while to figure out, especially considering that throughout the game you don't have a lot of weapons to throw in the first place. I understand the necessity to create special enemies in an otherwise free-flowing battle system, and can appreciate the attempt to add a puzzle-like element to boss fights, but they do not work in the context of not understanding whether any particular problem lies with you or the game. Even though as a whole Rise to Honor is short, you'll actually run into pacing problems. Some sequences simply drag way too long. Take the section where you have to kick bikers off their rides by countering them all the while regular enemies jump in to distract you. At first, it's a cool set piece, but then the bikers and mooks just keep coming, and keep coming, and coming, and now what started as an awesome sequence is just tedious. The same goes for shooting and stealth sections. Gunplay is simple. Hold R2 and push the right stick to shoot, L2 to target interactables like explosives, and adrenaline mode for cool slow-mo dives. These sections add variety, but some just overstay their welcome. Like, seriously, how many interconnected alleyways does San Francisco have? There's only a few stealth segments in the game, and they are not awful. I'm usually really averse to stealth in games that are not designed for it. But Rise to Honor's straightforward flashlight-based detection system, combined with a very linear and obvious placement of guards and their patterns, actually works well enough. Even though getting spotted does mean instant failure, at least it's clear why. That said, these sequences, though few in number, also start feeling too long by the time you're over with them. Sadly, even Rise to Honor's production values are inconsistent. On one hand, it nails the big budget blockbuster feel. Fantastic camera angles, detailed destructible environments, metric tons of motion capture data for realistic and stylish fight scenes, impressive facial animations. On the other hand, it's also full of jarring, seemingly rushed elements, abrupt audio transitions, repetitive enemy barks, even boss laughter tends to repeat the same audio sample over and over. As such, I think there's enough arguments to rate Rise to Honor with my Stasocritic scoring system.
It's Frankie's birthday next week. He wants that Rise to Honor game.
Oh yeah, I saw the commercial for that one. It looks really good.
Susie won't get it for him unless he gets an A on his biology final.
Buy it anyway. Frankie's a smart kid.
Susie would kill me.
What a wimp. Holy!
Stasocritic is divided into 5 different categories of various weights, each having a range of scores from 0 to 10 with their own criteria. The first category is design, with the biggest weight, that of 4, as how a game is played and structured defines our experience the most. I will assign a 6. Rise to Honor has a very solid foundation for the purposes it wants to achieve. It's just there's all these smaller problems spread throughout the experience that might not be big on their own, but collectively hold the game back quite a bit. The right-stick combat scheme feels wonderful and empowering when it works. The action set pieces are exhilarating when they don't overstay their welcome. Rise to Honor doesn't need anything from the systems it decided to not incorporate for the purposes of its direction. Upgrades, complex button combinations, collectibles, and stuff like that wouldn't do much to significantly improve the experience. But also, the final product sadly doesn't push far enough for what it does have to work in a consistently engaging way. That's why I should move on to emotions, a category with a weight of 3 that's all about personal feelings that are also very important. I will assign a 6 as well. I can't say that all the time spent with Rise to Honor has been consistently enjoyable. In fact, there were some moments when I was just ready to rage quit. At the same time, I was really intrigued by the game. I liked what it was going for, I think the gameplay has potential, and at least the first third of the game in Hong Kong was consistently enjoyable, so there's that. Next we have Cohesion, which has a weight of 2 and focuses on how well a game connects all of its different aspects into a singular, holistic experience. I will assign a 7. Rise to Honor has a strong fantasy of recreating a martial arts movie to the point of making its menus look like ones from a DVD home video release, and the game's mechanics and structure perfectly fit that direction. That being said, the issues I've mentioned with inconsistencies, pacing, lack of certain interaction triggers on various objects, all that sort of ruins the illusion somewhat. It reveals that ultimately this is a game that has a number of arbitrary decisions, because that's just how it works, and that's why I don't feel like I can assign a higher score. Now we get to context, a category that's about everything related to writing, narrative, character arcs, all that kind of stuff. We barely have discussed anything related to that because, honestly, it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but I will assign a 5. I can't say that Rise to Honor bolsters memorable or charismatic characters. Its comedic relief best friend character is cringeworthy at best, and the plot itself, while having a twist at the end, is not really captivating. But at the same time, it's sensible. There's clear setups, foreshadowing, a consistent arc progression of our main character, understandable motivations, a nice overarching theme, and by the end everything is neatly resolved with no unclarities or loose ends that don't make sense. The story might not be particularly memorable or engaging in its own right, but it's structured well and does its job, so what more does a game need, right? Finally, we have aesthetics, a category that's all about pleasing the senses. I will assign an 8. Rise to Honor bolsters high production value, great music, fitting sound effects, and is authentic to the roots of Hong Kong action flicks. But there's a bunch of elements all over the place that sadly lack the amount of polish required, and as authentic as it might be, the acting really doesn't improve the experience. When all scores and their weights are taken into account, Rise to Honor is going to get a final Stasocritic rating of 63, which in the context of my system means that the game is nice and can be enjoyed by many as long as they are aware of and ready to accept its flaws. I know I have criticized the game quite heavily, but when everything does come together, Rise to Honor feels absolutely brilliant. Now, a few moments of brilliance are not going to make the experience worth it for everyone, but they just might for you.